Welcome to Your Good News. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. This is a show dedicated to nothing but things that will make you smile or at least help you find hope and faith in humanity. The world is a rough place, and sometimes we just need to hear some of the good things going on. Well, the Gopher women may have been knocked out of the Sweet 16, but there's one fan whose love for the maroon and gold will never die. In fact, Peps has been a staple on the sidelines for decades now. She's also known as the Blanket Lady. Morgan Wolf has her story.
And look at your sweatshirt.
Yeah. Long before women's basketball had a spotlight, she was helping light it.
She's a big deal, and she's super duper supportive. I always see her at her games.
When Alvera Peps Newman isn't cheering on her alma mater, Eden Valley, she is driving 60 miles to watch every home Gopher women's basketball game.
When I was running, my ears started hurting, and boy, then I could run so much faster.
A courtside constant since 2004. Running with maroon, gold, and basketball history in hand.
How did you get the nickname Peps?
Well, back in the 60s, I had a lot of pep, and I drank a lot of Pepsi because I don't drink water, so I drank a lot of Pepsi.
Maybe that keeps her hydrated. But her passion is what fuels her.
Sports is my life. It has been my life, my 81 years.
A graduate of 1962, the court was off limits to women, but it didn't stop Peps.
Yeah, really good.
Current coach of the Eden Valley girls team, Tom Jansen's dad, graduated with Peps.
She was one of those people that could play with the boys, and she was one of the first ones picked on the teams all the time. She was that good.
She became a Texas cowgirl, barnstorming across the country, taking on men's teams and beating expectations along the way.
It wasn't just basketball. It had to be showmanship. I was part comedian and part this, and then, of course, when I got my own team, well, then I was coach, driver, player, all this, but I didn't know any better, and I loved it.
Shortly after Title IX passed in 1972, Barnstormer demand dwindled. The player turned coach put her focus into cheering on the next generation.
What she did with her career and have that much passion for it and couldn't play.
Perhaps when you look around, this gym has your name on it, and this is a gym in a high school where you never technically were allowed to play.
Right.
How does it feel to be back here and to know this legacy?
Well, I almost, when I talk about it, I can almost get a little bit of tears in my eyes thinking, I never dreamed they would be in commercials, have their own TV stations, have their own games on TV. You know, just like I can't believe what's happened to my life.
She shares her gifts after receiving them from others, like the blanket one fan gave her friend Vicky to keep her warm at the game.
And they gave her the blanket, so I said, hey, look at. And the people started applauding, so I ran.
For decades, Peps has gotten her steps in on the sidelines.
Finally, somebody come up and told me, said, well, you know, the band just loves you. I said, well, they do? Yeah, they call you the Blanket Lady.
Sometimes the biggest legacies aren't retired numbers.
I'm sure they want to retire the blanket. Would I give it up?
They're familiar faces.
Gosh, I love her so much. So cool. Well, a new museum is set to open this fall to more widely share the stories of Minnesota veterans being brought to life by a Minnesota sculptor. Boyd Hooper gives us a sneak peek at some of his premier pieces and the woman behind one of his warriors in the works.
I'm just going to start working here.
Even when he's working alone.
Yeah.
David Geister isn't.
I never get lonely. I always have somebody in the studio with me.
For the past 2 weeks, he's been with someone special.
Kay Bauer, she is a Vietnam War nurse.
2 weeks that started a year and a half ago.
I was tasked with creating at least 13 named Minnesota veterans.
Veterans whose stories will be featured here. The soon-to-be-completed Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum, opening in September near Little Falls, a 40,000-square-foot tribute to those who served, funded with $40 million in public and private donations.
The whole mission of the Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum is to tell the stories of Minnesota warriors. There you are.
And those guests keeping David company?
They'll walk us through Minnesota military history from the Civil War to the War on Terror.
Including Patrick Taylor, who buried his brother Isaac at Gettysburg.
This fellow right here is Chuck Lindbergh, and he is one of the Iwo Jima flag raisers.
All Minnesotans.
General John Vesey, chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff.
Mostly.
Virginia Lane Fraser.
Departed.
A woman who was a World War II veteran.
Which makes notable David's time with Kay.
I'm the short one.
From her early days in the smallest men's uniform they had.
Then they hand you an M14 and I fell over.
The Navy nurse moved on to spend a year.
This is me.
In a primitive South Vietnam hospital.
She has the most delightful smile. If I was looking up, wounded on a gurney or something, and you'd see this face peer down at you, looking into those eyes and thinking, I think it's going to be okay, I think I'm going to be all right.
David has a soft spot for those who care for warriors.
I spent 4 years in the United States Marines when I was a young man.
Then,
this is a painting I did for the National Park Service.
The self-taught artist started caring for veterans in his own way.
The Battle of Gettysburg.
By painting their stories.
Yeah, this is typically what I do.
These sculpting skills are new for David, honed specifically for this project.
It makes me a little nervous because Kay is going to be able to look at this.
With the permission of the artist.
Can I show you something?
Yes, sir.
We decided to give Kay
This isn't done yet.
a preview.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, look at that. Oh, can you believe that? I am, oh my goodness gracious.
The 89-year-old has told none of her friends about this.
I'm just afraid to tell them.
In case you didn't love her enough.
That would be bragging.
Already.
You can't do that.
I'm really looking forward to painting her eyes.
For David and Kay and the rest of his company, another mission.
This is without a doubt the most meaningful project I've ever worked on.
Boyd Hubert.
I have to heat up
KARE 11 News.
the clay a little bit.
Minneapolis.
Can you believe he learned that skill just for this project? And by the way, you may have seen David Geister's work in another format. David created the illustrations for all 5 children's books, authored by Vikings Hall of Famer and former Minnesota Supreme Court Justice Alan Page. David says he'll be starting work later this year on a 6th. Now to a movement aimed at brightening the days of our current service members. It involves the Girl Scouts and a whole lot of cookies. Chris Cook has that story.
Girl Scouts work together with aid and police officers, volunteers, and even active duty military to donate tens of thousands of Girl Scout cookie boxes to troops. Staff Sergeant Neil Simon is active in the Army Reserve 362nd Quartermaster Battalion. He said people don't understand how much stuff like this brightens up a service member's day.
When they get these care packages, soldiers, it's like part of home coming to them, especially the ones that are abroad.
In addition to the cookies, volunteers made care packages with toiletries to ship out to different branches of the military. One of their volunteers said it's awesome to help.
Because, all the people that are overseas and don't get to see their families a lot, we just, spread love all across the world.
The boxes are a combination of donations from the Girl Scouts organization itself and boxes that other people bought to donate. A Girl Scout I spoke to said she likes to picture service members opening the care packages.
Well, that makes me feel really good because Girl Scout cookies are just so good, and it feels nice to have this little sweetness in their life.
Barbara Whitehead is the volunteer director for Support Our Troops North Carolina. She said it's especially important to remember the troops right now as the country faces war in the Middle East.
It's hard when you're a dad and you're away from home and your girls, their birthday parties, their soccer games, Christmas, Easter egg hunts.
And of course, for all our moms that are serving this country too. Well, back here at home, food has a way of healing. A mother-daughter duo who call the Long Lake Orono area home are sharing their family's recipes with the community they love. Heidi Wigdahl takes us to Talavera Mexican restaurant in her series, Behind the Business.
Every business has to start somewhere.
Can I grab you something to drink?
Talavera Mexican restaurant opened in this Orono strip mall in the end of 2024. But before then, they were just a few doors down.
My mom and my stepdad sold burritos at the gas station.
We started in the gas station and everything began with just the food truck. And then we decided to open the restaurant.
Carla Parra and her daughter,
Una quesadilla?
Carolina Malara, wanted to bring familiar food to a familiar place.
My family has been here for almost 25 years in Long Lake. They moved here from Mexico City, so my grandma used to cook and everybody would come and eat at my grandma's little apartment here in Long Lake.
My mother's recipes, yes, and I always want to engage with my traditions with Mexican food.
I got the big long leg burrito and it is massive, gargantuan.
We love it. It is our go-to Mexican spot. Every time we come, we know the food is going to be delicious. It's never a miss.
The support has meant even more after the past few months, with fewer customers coming through because of ICE operations.
It was a difficult time, but we also had a lot of support. Volunteers and people calling to check in on us, and they volunteered like their time to watch our doors and our parking lots.
In return, they helped those impacted by ICE in their community.
We raised like $40,000 to pay rents and stuff.
Supporting their neighbors who support them.
There are a lot of businesses that are not gonna make it through this time, and so we're very fortunate to have a really tight-knit community.
Heidi Wigdahl, KARE 11 News.
Can't get out to Long Lake? No worry. The family's food truck, Al Chile Street Food, will be at US Bank Stadium on April 10th and 11th for the Morgan Wallen concert. Maybe you can catch them there. Still ahead, kids with cancer is never good news, but we've got a lineup of young people beating the disease and inspiring others while doing it. Welcome back. When a kid battling cancer is granted a wish, it's usually something big, like a trip or meeting their hero, something that is just for them. But when 14-year-old Jude Baker was given that chance, he made a choice that is now touching an entire community. Here's Caitlin Ross.
Jude Baker knows what it feels like to wait, and he knows what it feels like to hurt.
It wasn't even like knowing I could die. It was just like the chemo was worse. You know, it hurt.
Jude was just 12 when he was diagnosed with cancer. The treatments were long, the pain was constant, and for his family, watching it all happen was almost unbearable.
I could feel his pain. And as a dad, that sucks.
But even as Jude fought for his own life, something else was on his mind. The people he saw every time he walked into the hospital for treatment, people living on the streets, struggling just to get through the day. So when Jude finally rang the bell, marking the end of his treatment, he already knew what he wanted his wish to be.
I got out of my version of heck, and I want to help others who are in similar situation. You know, like their own version, you know.
Most kids wish to go somewhere or meet someone. Jude wished to help someone.
His heart is so big and that he wants to help everyone, and you know, he could have chosen anything, to do anything, to get anything, and he chose to help people.
Emily Campbell coordinates wishes for Make-A-Wish Georgia. And she says in all of her time doing this work, she had never seen one quite like Jude's.
His only wish was to give back to his community. Jude came up with this all on his own, never really had a backup wish. This was it. So we were determined to make it happen.
So the community came together to make Jude's wish real. Backpacks filled with supplies, sleeping bags for people with nowhere to sleep, and a hot meal for anyone in Somerville who needed one. For Jude, it wasn't charity, it was understanding.
I wanted to help them out because, you know, I was in a bad situation, and they were too.
Now that he's in remission, Jude said he hopes his wish inspires something bigger than one event, something we can all be a part of.
Oh, buddy. Well, after 2 years of fighting for his life, a Wayne County, Ohio boy is now cancer-free. And when his school found out, well, they made sure he felt all of the love. Here's Lindsay Buckingham with that story.
This was the best day of Levi Buxman's life. Students and staff at Green Elementary lining the halls, dressed in his favorite color, cheering, clapping, and celebrating a boy who just lived through the fight of his life. Let's go, Levi, let's go! At 11 years old, Levi is a force of nature. He knows every move to Thriller. Ouch! And isn't afraid to belt out the words. He loves his people with everything he has.
I love my mom. You love your mom. Guess what? Your mom loves you too.
But it's what he's been through that says the most about him. Just look at his jacket.
We thought he had the flu. Took him to the ER, and within a couple hours we had a diagnosis, and then he didn't come home again for 70 days.
It was B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
It was
awful. Just felt like time stood still. You could tell that I was clearly upset and I didn't want to scare him.
He's been battling for more than 2 years, sometimes just to survive.
Like 267 nights in the hospital.
Then a serious stroke. Doctors say he shouldn't have survived.
When we saw the scans, I kind of wanted to vomit. The lesion is massive, and the neurologist said, I don't have an explanation other than God.
He spent 3 Christmases in the hospital, but through his darkest days at Akron Children's, someone special walked side by side with him.
Liam was his friend that he met in the oncology unit. One of them would show up at the hospital and they'd end up staying for weeks, and the other one would be right behind them.
Sadly, Liam passed away last May, yet he never left Levi's heart.
Was Liam your best bud? Yeah. Yep. Levi really kind of struggled around his bell ringing, wishing Liam could be there too.
That brings us here. It was Friday, March 20th, and the celebration continued thanks to Levi's entire school.
Let's go, Levi, let's go! One of my biggest fears when we had Levi and got his Down syndrome diagnosis was that he wouldn't have friends, that kids would be cruel and he just wouldn't be seen.
But he was, by every single one of his classmates who wanted to shine his joy right back to him.
Seeing how much the kids love him and the kids were seeking him out for high fives and hugs and calling his name. It warms my heart to see that the kids see him for who he is. You love everybody, huh? And you're just happy to be a part of the party, huh?
Lindsay Buckingham.
Oh, me too, buddy.
3 News.
Well, if you've ever been denied medical care because of your insurance, you know how hopeless it can feel. But Ken Erdahl shares how a Minnesota mom took that fight public and found hope in the process.
Millions of people have spent the week following the incredible journey of 1-year-old Stella McMahon.
It has been a wild ride. We're very thankful.
Alexandria McMahon says her daughter's ride really began 1 year ago this week.
It was dire.
A series of tests revealed a devastating diagnosis: infant T-cell leukemia.
I think they haven't had this kind of T-cell here at Children's for over 20 years.
She has a rare form of an already rare disease.
Dr. Lane Miller says Stella immediately began treatment, including chemotherapy at Children's Minnesota, and it was working.
She got down to no detectable disease, which is a huge win, a huge win.
But she recently lost the ability to continue treatment.
She has a viral illness right now.
Stella needs healthy T-cells to fight that virus, but her chemo wiped them out.
The only other option out there is to bring some more T-cells back in.
And Dr. Miller says Cincinnati Children's just happens to offer T-cell infusions for that specific virus.
We needed to get her to Cincinnati with a medical team and get her there quickly, which required an air ambulance.
Did you say it was denied?
Yeah, the prior authorization got denied.
But Stella's insurance disagreed,
claiming that she was well enough to travel over 24 hours by land.
It's very frustrating.
Dr. Lane filed an appeal, but instead of waiting,
it will take 24 to 72 hours.
Alexandria decided to post the call on social media.
It took off, and our community absolutely showed up for us.
Her videos generated millions of views and much more.
So we got a phone call at about 9 a.m. The following day.
The call came from Dr. Waris Bakari, a co-founder of Claimable, a startup that uses AI to fight health insurance denials. And he also happens to be friends with billionaire Mark Cuban.
And said that Mark Cuban saw my video at 6 a.m. and told him to just take care of it.
So we're just going to pay for it and they'll fight the insurance on the back end. I don't think you guys should wait.
The next day, little Stella was in the air. All expenses paid.
We landed in Cincinnati, another ambulance ride. The infusion itself was 90 seconds.
90 seconds?
Yes, sir, 90 seconds, a minute and a half. And I was like, all of this, man, for a 90-second infusion. But it was beautiful. We needed it.
Hours later, they returned to Children's Minnesota, where they remain.
I think today we are actually starting to see the first signs of improvement.
Stella's road ahead is still uncertain, but they can't say enough about a certain billionaire and the millions more who lifted them up.
There's no words that I could put together to describe how thankful and humbled we are to have had this opportunity. Our hearts are filled with gratitude, and we will pay that forward for the rest of our lives if we can.
Well, since her videos went viral, Alexandria says her insurance called to say they have reversed their decision. She says they wouldn't say what prompted the change, and she doesn't think they ever will. How awesome are those 3 stories? Still to come, music can bring about so many emotions, but it can also be healing in other ways. And we'll meet some very lucky seniors. Welcome back. The lasting effects of a brain injury can make clarity a struggle. Samantha Fisher introduces us to a piano student using music to help her regain focus and support others.
This is Gabby Greer's Brain. This is Gabby Greer's Brain on music.
Music can be a tool for healing.
About 2 years out from suffering from what doctors first believed was a minor head injury,
I slid probably half a flight of stairs and hit my head. The doctors basically told me I was fine.
the now 17-year-old still feels its effects.
It was just this constant fog. I couldn't focus, I couldn't think, I couldn't concentrate.
But as time went on, Gabby's struggle to find her focus became clearer.
The one time of day when this wasn't happening was when I was sitting at the piano.
The best instrument to help heal her was already in her own 2 hands.
I think piano is the most complex instrument to play.
Gabby's nearly lifelong lessons on piano continued at MacPhail Center for Music with her instructor, Annette Lee.
Neuroscience has changed. Very good. What I see from past years, cluster open. The doctors always recommended don't listen to music. They should be in the dark.
Going against conventional concussion wisdom.
That's going to happen over here, you know.
Gabby convalesced with her community.
Yes.
Playing through the pain on keys.
You're projecting so much more here.
I underwent a lot of testing. I would leave every appointment just feeling kind of crazy because no one knew what was going on.
Finally putting a name to the face of post-concussion syndrome.
I've met very few other people who face invisible injuries like myself. It's not a community that's often talked about.
Until now.
It really inspired me to start Notes of Hope,
a nonprofit supporting brain injury survivors and their families, while at the same time helping to raise thousands in donations toward brain injury research. A topic she now knows well. Gabby teamed up with Florida-based Nestor.
They do what's called neuroplasticity training,
a company that combines mind and machine to help people with cognitive setbacks feel better, faster.
They put the EEG head cap on me, and I can see exactly where my brain is not working correctly.
In December, Gabby showed other people too.
It was a really cool event that about 100 people were in attendance for.
Putting her brain on display,
the audience could really see the impact that music has on the brain.
Showing them that what might be just music to one person's ears can become a measure in healing for a silent sufferer's head and heart.
It's honestly really validating. It's a slow process, but I believe music definitely has played a big part in getting back to where I was.
Samantha Fisher.
That was amazing.
KARE 11 News.
What did you do differently?
I was just focused on where I'd line up with you.
Okay.
Well, we have moved on to April, but we wanted to take a look back at St. Patrick's Day and the luck of not just the Irish, but everyone. Riley Mack wanted to know, what does it mean to live a lucky life the old-fashioned way? For the answer, she went right to the source.
Everybody knows the signs of bad luck. A ladder walked under.
Oh man.
Salt spilled. A penny tails side up.
No. Okay, camera, tripod.
So I figured it was time to find some good luck.
Microphone.
The old-fashioned way.
Wait, perfect.
No pennies, nor ladders, no spilled salt. Just some not so...
One more thing.
beginner's luck.
Okay, you'll come in and take a seat right at that chair. What do you believe the luckiest thing that ever happened to you was?
What's the luckiest thing? I had so many lucky things.
Marrying my husband.
I'm lucky I married the man I married.
The people I met made my life wonderful.
Everything just seemed to fall in place.
When my husband died, I said, what can I do to memorialize his life? The people that I meet, I'm hoping that their life will be better for having met me.
When you look at your life, what makes you feel lucky?
Taught ceramics. 100 women coming a week to my ceramic classes. People, I think.
I like reading.
Most of them are pretty nice.
I've read over 100 books since I've been here.
Not the ones that are cranky and yucky.
That makes me happy.
When I was 6, I took hula lessons in Hawaii. The teacher said, June, do you have love in your heart? If you don't have love in your heart, you cannot really do the hula. And as the years passed on, I said, you know what? You have to have that love in your heart to be a good human being.
I feel lucky.
Very lucky. That universe has given me a lot of luck.
What do you guys think is the luckiest thing that ever happened to you two?
That we found each other. We celebrated New Year's Eve, 60 years. We love each other. And the good times we've had gets us through the bad.
Leave it to an old-fashioned microphone to capture a lesson that's timeless.
Do you believe in creating your own luck?
Yes.
Yes.
Lucky.
Oh, yes.
Not by chance.
Yeah, very much.
But by choice.
That was incredible. Thank you so much. Good job. That was beautiful. Good job. Good job.
For cute's sake, I can't even stand it. Well, that's all for your good news. We hope this half hour gave you a little bit of joy today. And until we see you again, have an excellent week, friends.